Ready. Play.
Hey Shane, how are you doing?
Hi guys, how are you? Yeah, not too bad.
Good.
Hi, Shane.
How's the quiet spot? Is it quiet? It sounds quite quiet to me.
It's not too bad. I'm just hoping not too many people come by. I'm just in the player hotel and yeah, in the treatment area where no one's actually come yet.
All right, it'll be a little bit quieter than this spot that you found last night, Shane, that I saw you post on Twitter of I think it's back on a dial
Yeah, it was pretty cool actually to yeah, walk past Times Square on the way back to the hotel, and yeah, just saw a picture of Rafa, even though he's not at the tournament. Yeah, it was a nice, cool ad that I think Infosys has put out.
Yeah, of course, him and Infosys have just joined. Actually, Infosys and you, do you work together at all?
Not really. I mean, we're sort of in the same industry, but I think the target markets are maybe a little bit different. Whereas we go directly to players, I think they're more targeting tournaments and providing sort of software solutions for them. So related industry, but I think we're different spots in the value chain.
Fair enough. Okay, let's get to it. Sabalenka and Jabeur had 2 victories yesterday. I think the one that caught most of our attention, there was the Jabeur match. I saw you there breathe a huge sigh of relief on the match point, which I believe was a forehand winner.
Yeah, look, there was a few match points, so yeah, it was good to get over the line at the end there. Tough match, very tough match.
How is Ons at the moment? I mean, in 2 respects. One, of course, we've got the Wimbledon scenario that's not long ago, but also physically, we saw her struggling at various times. She even seemed to still be. I saw her cough about 30 seconds after match point last night as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah, she's obviously in Cincinnati. She hurt her foot in the match against Sabalenka, so it's taken a little bit to sort of get back there. And then yeah, the first couple of rounds, I guess. When you haven't been practicing as much, the conditioning's not 100%, but she's getting there. So starting to put in some yards, and obviously the first 2 rounds were tough, long matches. So hopefully that holds her in good stead for the rest of the tournament.
The tie break at the first set, which of course was crucial, as they often are, was not the most what's the way, how can I put this without sounding unfair, but it was a kind of a win ugly tie break. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think the conditions were a little bit tougher than maybe it appears on screen. It was getting chilly, so it's probably the coldest night in New York that I've been on court, and yeah, definitely it was harder to get the ball through the court, and there was a little bit of wind as well at times. So yeah, it was trickier conditions, and both girls had to navigate through that, and at various stages they both struggled, I think, with the conditions.
Cool. Jack, have you got an Ons question before we move on to Aryna?
Nothing that would sound like, I don't want to put Shane in a bias spot or anything like that. I don't know, like how do you rate Ons' chances, Shane? Without, you don't have to give a press conference answer. Obviously, it's up to you.
Yeah, look, I'd like to think, and not just Ons, but Ons and Aryna, I think they both can win the tournament. They're both the types of players that build into a tournament, so I wouldn't necessarily look too much at their form in week 1, because I think they're building. And if you look at historically their slam performances, that's what you see. So I still rate both their chances quite highly. Yeah, obviously there's work to do.
I have so John threw me in it there. I didn't have a question, Shane, but I have a better question now.
Go.
How do you think how good a job has Ons done at bouncing back from the Wimbledon final? Is it still in the mind? Surely she's done a pretty good job already, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's done. She's done an amazing job to even get to where she is. But yeah, even I think post Wimbledon, I think they've done a lot of work to sort of put that behind her, but also acknowledge that it happened and learn from it. So that's all I guess she can do and the team can do. And I think she's she found a little bit of form in Cincinnati. Unfortunately, the foot injury derailed her a little bit, but I'd back her to do the work to give herself as many chances as she can in the next couple of years.
Shane, is it your first time in New York, or have you, in terms of the US Open at least, with the?
Yeah, no, it's my second time, but the first since the sort of the COVID years, I would call it.
Okay. And how does your preparation compare at this slam to others? I mean, in terms of, because we've got 3 different surfaces across the year, but perhaps the way you analyze things and bring the data as well to the 2 players.
Yeah, I mean, we do rely a little bit on the early part of the season where there were a lot of hard court events, so we've got a fair bit of data from there. But also the lead up events from starting from Washington, and there was a couple of hard court events in Europe as well. Yeah, all of that, the challenges as well that were going on. So we've got a fair bit of data going into the US Open. So in terms of my work, it's probably the same as any other slam. Just I guess the time zone's a little bit different, but me being here, and I've got another analyst on the grounds here as well. So I think time zone's not a big challenge when I'm at the event.
There's a question here from somebody on in the chat regarding some of the wear and tear and the physical issues that Ons has shown, but also we've seen it with Dominic Thiem, we've seen it with Rusevori, of course, who's a player that you have worked with as well. Unfortunately, to pull out ill just before his match. Are they all the same illness, and also are there other coaches and people that you know in and around New York that are suffering too?
Yeah, look, I think they're very different. So the Rusevori, he was unwell shortly after Cincinnati, where he had that good run beating Rublev, and starting to feel unwell, but decided to pull out at Winston-Salem as a precaution, but never really got better. He practiced a couple of times and then started feeling really, really, really bad on the Saturday and Sunday, and didn't practice, and then just unfortunately couldn't play, which is a shame because I think it felt like he was building to something, but it happens. And the other injuries, they're all different, I think.
Okay.
I don't want to sort of speculate too much, but obviously there's the changing balls and the surfaces. It does have an impact, but I guess that's not my area of speciality, so I don't want to comment too much on that.
Shane, you've mentioned the conditions, and I presume you mean in terms of being kind of hot and humid, and just difficult to. Does that affect the way you present the data as well? Do you say, listen, we've got this data that we can look at the beginning of the year in Australia or Indian Wells or Miami, or even perhaps more recently in Cincinnati in Canada, but we don't quite know how this is going to play out in New York?
Yeah, look, we put those caveats. I mean, we do have temperature data, and we know if it was a day session where the data was collected or a night session. So, we're aware of how those conditions can impact it. And certain teams really, like for instance, if they're playing at night, they only want data on night matches. So, other teams are not as fussy. So we try and build to what the teams want. I'll always try and get like for like in terms of data. So if it was a night session in cool conditions, I'll try and get that versus something completely different. But at some point you still use the data. You just might wait certain conditions a bit more.
All right, let's switch to Aryna Sabalenka, because I know that time is pressing and you've got plenty of things to do, I'm sure, today. She's had 2, at least on paper, comfortable matches. I saw her first round match on TV. I didn't catch her match against Burrage. How's she coming along?
Yeah, I mean, she's doing what she needs to. I mean, she's still finding form. I think all parts of her game still will need to improve throughout the tournament. And but yeah, she did what she needed to. I think the match against Burrage, the scoreboard doesn't show how close it was. I've got live data coming in, and at one point the difference in it was the second set, and they were. I mean, Aryna had only won 2 more points for the match, so it was a lot tighter than the scoreline suggested. And Jodie played really well. But yeah, it was a credit to Aryna for just figuring that out and then probably finishing really strong, which was pleasing to see.
Jack interviewed her biomechanics coach earlier on this year, and I think actually, Shane, you may even have caught some of that. I remember talking to you about it at one point,
yeah.
Gavin McMillan. So I'm going to just hand over to Jack for the final Aryna Sabalenka related question.
Thanks very much, John. I suppose I'm interested. The last couple of slams she's played, right? She's went out in the semi-finals. There's maybe arguments to be made that she could have played better in a few of those matches. It obviously still came super close to the French Open, had match point and stuff. Do you think there's any kind of lingering doubts coming back in those big pressure moments? Sometimes is it way more complicated than that, or is it as simple as that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's also probably a credit to Mukova in that semi-final in the French Open. She played really well. What people don't maybe see on screen was there was one end at Roland Garros that was really tricky to hold serve. So even though Aryna was up a break, she was going to come down to the trickier end at some point. So so I think the French Open, again, yeah, of course, when you have match points, you want to put it away, but it happens. Credit to Mukova, and I think Ons played unbelievable from a breakdown in that second set to win that match. And I there were probably a few little things that she could have done, Aryna, but Ons played unbelievable, and I think you just could have handed and provide the credit to the opponent. I don't think mentally there's any scars or anything like that. I think she'll play each match on its merits. So whoever, if she's lucky enough to get to the semi-final, I'm sure she'll be able to perform.
Yeah,
Shane,
I wonder. Sorry, just one other thing, because I'm very interested in knowing. Do you happen to know, maybe having seen the data, and obviously Aryna wins in Australia, she gets close at Roland Garros and Wimbledon, but maybe some of the percentages just go the way of the opponent because the serve maybe is a bit less effective. I just wonder, does she find it easier to hold serve on a hard court generally, where the conditions might be a little bit easier to read, I guess, and for a big hitter that's helpful?
I think that's the case for majority of the tour. The hard courts give a little bit more for your serve. Help your second serve a little bit more. So I think if you looked across the board for ATP, WTA players, they would find holding serve on the hard courts and even more so on the grass easier than on the clay. So yes, to answer your question, I think certainly the hard courts help.
I spoke to Aryna at a press conference in Berlin, so between the French Open and Wimbledon. And of course, at that point, and still is, if she has a great run in New York, which I think she probably will, this has been an amazing year. But for me, as a fan as well, I'm thinking this could have been a Steffi Graf-esque kind of year. Just how just so fine those margins are, Shane, between being on for a calendar slam and one Grand Slam.
Yeah, it's close, and I mean, I'd like to think there's opportunities in future years to do it as well. But the tour is really strong. I think there's some amazing players in the top 10, all sort of peaking at different stages. You had Aryna starting the year really strong, Rybakina, in almost doing the sunshine double. You had Iga dominating really once she hits the clay. The grass court was a mixed bag, but there were a lot of players popping up. Kvitova early, and Coco's playing amazing now. So I think it's hard to do that. It's just so even in that top 10. So yes, we'd love to put her in the best position to do it, but I also respect how well the opponents are playing as well.
Of course, there is, of course, a little carrot of a world number one as well at stake in terms of if she goes one round beyond Iga, or of course, if she plays Iga in the final and she wins that match, that will be hers. Maybe that's a chat for another day, though, Shane, because we should let you go. Today, because Aryna and Ons are both on the same side of the draw, there's a potential complication later in the tournament, but you've had that many times before. We've spoken about that as well. So I just want to ask, what happens today? Are you day off? Are you chilling? Are you watching TV? Are you watching tennis? Are you going back to Times Square?
I'm going in. So we've still got Matteo Analdi as well in the tournament. He's on the same side of the draw as well. So just going into practice, catching up with the coach, and then probably catching up with both Ons and Aryna's team at some stage as well. But yeah, so it'll be a little bit more of a relaxed day, but we'll still be at the centre.
All right, Shane, thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your time in New York, and fingers crossed for your players that they go deep and you can enjoy the lights of New York and Rafa Nadal on huge screens in Times Square a bit longer.
All right.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.